It's been 5 months since Operation Sindoor. The battle may be over, but the story is still unfolding. Pakistan has tried to shape the narrative with bold claims and unverified victories. India, on the other hand, has chosen silence and substance. No rhetoric, no theatrics, just facts. And today, those facts came from the top. The Air Force Chief held a detailed press conference. He laid out what was destroyed, what was defended, and what lessons India has drawn. This is the most comprehensive account of Operation Sindoor we have heard so far. We'll bring you the details. Also on the show, how Russian President Vladimir Putin is reaching out to India. The Taliban's foreign minister is visiting India next week. We'll tell you what to expect. The Macron hot mic moment mocking Trump, that's going viral. How Prince William wants to reform the monarchy. Will the plan work? And why Iran wants to build a new capital city. All that and much more coming up. First, the headlines.
Kiev accuses Russia of launching its largest ever attack on Ukraine's gas network since the war began in 2022. Moscow has repeatedly targeted Ukraine's power grid in overnight attacks that have cut off power and heating for millions as temperatures plunge below freezing. Ukraine has also launched retaliatory long-range drone strikes on Russia's oil refineries. Thousands protest across Italy in support of the Gaza aid flotilla. The strike disrupted trains and port traffic, causing chaos for commuters. Demonstrators condemned the treatment of the flotilla that sailed to challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza. Madagascar's president condemns what he claims is an attempt to topple his government. This comes as fresh protests flared against the political elite and years of misrule. The poor Indian Ocean island has been rocked by days of fatal clashes between demonstrators and security forces. Indonesia suspends TikTok's license over its failure to share data. The video sharing app had refused to divulge information about the recent anti-government protests. Indonesia has the second biggest audience on TikTok with more than 100 million users. The app is owned by China's ByteDance. And Hong Kong begins a countdown to eliminate shoebox flats, with a new law taking effect in March that will regulate cramped living quarters. More than 220,000 households in the city of 7.5 million live in subdivided flats. Hong Kong is one of the world's least affordable cities.
It's been 5 months since India's Operation Sindoor, but its impact continues to be felt. In this time, Pakistan has spun its own false tales. They have made unverified military claims. Yet, India has been poised. No outbursts, no irresponsible rhetoric, and no theatrics. Instead, India has focused on a detailed flow of information. Today was the perfect example of that. The Indian Air Force Chief held an important press conference. In it, he revealed new details of Operation Sindoor. Like how many jets did India shoot down? What planes were they? And how were they shot down? Listen in.
We have gathered from whatever reports we have got is that on ground, because of our strikes, there have been radars at least 4 places, command and control centers at 2 places, runway, of course, damaged at 2 places. Then 3 of their hangars in 3 different stations have been damaged. And in that hangar, as well as on tarmac, we have signs of one C-130 class of aircraft, one AEW&C class of aircraft, and at least 4 to 5 fighter aircraft, most likely F-16, because that base happened to be F-16.
That's a very detailed assessment. We can split it into 2 different categories. 1, the assets destroyed in India's offensive, and 2, the assets destroyed by India's air defenses. Let's look at the first one. The Air Force Chief listed out a number of Pakistani assets, radars at 4 different locations, command centers at 2 bases, 2 different runways, 3 aircraft hangars, 1 C-130 aircraft, 4 to 5 Pakistan jets, most likely F-16s, and 1 surface-to-air missile system. All of these were taken out by Indian missiles. Which brings us to the second category. Pakistan assets destroyed by India's air defenses. 5 high-tech fighter jets, either F-16s or China's JF-17s, and also 1 long-range striker. A Pakistani surveillance plane was destroyed at over 300 kilometers. That's way beyond visual range. It's the longest surface-to-air kill in history, all thanks to the Russian S-400 system. And these details are confirmed. There is visual proof of the damage from Indian strikes. We're talking about satellite pictures. The before and after images confirm the destruction. Of course, Pakistan won't admit it. They claim to have shot down multiple Indian jets. The air chief had a response to that too. Listen in.
उन्होंने कहा हमने इतने जेट गिराए, आपने कुछ नहीं बोला. मैं अभी भी कुछ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ उसके बारे में. और ना मैं बोलना चाहूँगा. अगर वो सोचते उन्होंने मेरे 15 जेट गिराए हैं, उनको सोचने दो. I hope they are convinced about it and they will cater for 15 less aircraft in my inventory when they come to fight again. So उनका जो narrative है वो I think उनके जो वो मनोहर कहानियां हैं. So चलने दो, अच्छा है, उनको खुश रहने दो.
The Tri-Service Chief did admit some losses, but the exact number has not been revealed. And the Air Chief made his position clear. He has no plans to reveal the losses India may or may not have suffered. Why? To keep Pakistan guessing. Beyond the battlefield losses, the Air Chief also spoke about other issues. One was the learning curve. The Air Chief says Operation Sindoor should be a lesson to all. On what? Setting clear objectives, completing them quickly, and then terminating the conflict.
It stands as a lesson which will go down in history that this is one war that was started with a very clear objective, and it was terminated in a quick time without just prolonging it. We are seeing what is happening in the world. The 2 wars that are going on, there's no talk about termination.
It's a timely lesson from the Indian military, because nowadays every conflict has become a forever war. The objectives are vague and the human costs too high. In that context, this learning is important. Also, the Air Chief gave a sneak peek into the military's planning. The long-term objective is self-reliance. Basically, to design and produce weapons at home. That way, India doesn't have to rely on foreign powers. At the same time, the Air Chief is open to acquisitions.
We have drawn out in that is, of course, built around Atmanirbharta, because I fully understand, all of you understand also that Atmanirbharta बहुत ही ज़रूरी है अगर हमें कल को एक सुपर पावर बनना है, अगर हमें इंडिपेंडेंट बनना है. नहीं तो हम किसी ना किसी पे डिपेंड रहेंगे, तो जब हमें ज़रूरत होगी हमें वो इक्विपमेंट नहीं मिलेगा. क्या if required, we go in for some strategic kind of partnership where some aircraft, some system that we immediately need the technology can be brought to India and can be manufactured in India.
One such gap is the fighter fleet. India requires 42 squadrons in its air force, but currently it has only 29. And it's not just a question of quantity, it's also a question of quality. China has developed and deployed 5th generation jets. They are also testing a 6th generation plane. Some reports say Pakistan could buy the 5th generation plane from China. If so, India would lose the qualitative edge. So what can New Delhi do? There is talk of buying more Rafale jets from France. There is also talk of buying Russia's 5th generation jet, the Su-57. The Russians are very keen on this deal. They have even offered to produce the plane in India. But as things stand, no call has been taken. Either way, here's the bottom line. The Indian Air Force isn't resting on its laurels. It is constantly preparing. As they say, the best way to avoid a war, prepare for it. And now let's talk about Vladimir Putin. The Russian president has weighed in on the India-US trade tensions. He has a message for New Delhi. Putin is telling India, don't worry about the new tariffs. Russia is ready to step in. Putin says Moscow will help balance the losses.
The losses faced by India due to punitive U.S. tariffs will be balanced by crude imports from Russia. Plus, it will gain prestige as a sovereign nation.
Putin was at the Valdai Discussion Forum in Sochi, an event that hosts geopolitical and security experts from across the world. He used the platform to defend India. He said America's new tariffs won't break New Delhi because Russia can compensate. Putin says he wants to balance Russia's trade with India. By buying more agriculture products, by importing Indian medicines, and most importantly, by supplying more oil to India. Of his message, he said any losses from tariffs will be balanced by Russian crude. The Russian leader gave a word of assurance. He said Russia would keep oil supplies steady and help India in shielding itself from economic shocks. So Putin is pitching energy not just as a commodity, but as a strategic tool, as a buffer in the trade war against Trump. Putin didn't stop at economics. He also spoke about the broader relationship. He termed the relationship with India as special.
PM Modi is a very reasonable and wise leader. He is very oriented in the interest of his nation. We love Indian cinema. We are probably the only country in the world, other than India, that we have a separate channel that streams Indian cinema day and night.
The message from the Russian president is clear. Putin trusts India, which brings us to the next exchange. Putin was asked about the American pressure, the relentless demands by Trump to drop Russian oil imports. Now remember, this has been a growing demand from the Americans. He even linked India's oil imports to the tariffs. So Putin was asked directly, would India ever renounce Russian energy? His answer was no.
If India refuses our energy supplies, it will suffer a certain loss, of course. The people of a country like India, believe me, will closely monitor the decisions made by the political leadership and will never allow any humiliation in front of anyone. And then, I know Prime Minister Modi, he himself would never take any step of this kind.
Putin used the word humiliation. He said the people of India will never accept their country being humiliated. Now this statement goes beyond support. It's a defense of India's right to take its own sovereign decisions. The timing of the statement is significant. Trump has been dialing up the pressure on both fronts after imposing 50% tariffs on India. Trump slapped additional taxes on pharma products and then restricted the H-1B visas. At the same time, he has spoken about providing more support to Ukraine against Russia. It's a complete U-turn. Now that's the backdrop of Putin's outreach to India. Putin is planning a visit to India this December, and he is already laying the groundwork. His speech sent 3 clear signals. First, Russia is committed to its partnership with India. Second, Moscow wants to expand cooperation into new areas. And third, Putin expects India to hold its ground, to keep following an independent and multi-aligned foreign policy. Especially on the question of Russian oil, Putin is sending a direct and a simple message. America may be unreliable, but Russia will stand with India. Putin has offered more oil, he has offered trade, and he has praised India's leadership. Putin is pursuing a simple goal. In a world divided by tariffs and sanctions, Russia wants a closer relationship with India. The unthinkable is all set to happen next week. The Taliban's foreign minister will visit India. His name is Amar Khan Muttaqi. He took charge as the Taliban's top diplomat in 2021, and 4 years later, he is coming to New Delhi. How exactly was this trip arranged? Is India recognizing the Taliban regime? And what does it mean for the neighborhood? Well, the trip isn't sudden. It's been building up for a while. We have seen multiple rounds of engagement since the Taliban came to power. In June of 2022, India reopened its Kabul embassy, not for diplomatic purpose, but as a technical office. The main idea was to disperse aid. And in November of 2023, the Taliban took control of the Afghan embassy in New Delhi. In March of 2024, an Indian diplomat met with Muttaqi in Kabul. In January of 2025, the Indian Foreign Secretary met with Muttaqi in Dubai. And finally, in May of 2025, Muttaqi spoke to India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. This timeline makes one thing clear. A visit like this was always on the cards. The only roadblock was travel restrictions. Like most Taliban leaders, Muttaqi is under UNSC sanctions, meaning that he needs a waiver to travel abroad. On the 30th of September, the UNSC granted that waiver, which is why Muttaqi is now able to visit. He will be the first Taliban official to be hosted by India. Now, if he meets with Minister Jaishankar, it will be a very significant move, which raises the second question. Is India recognizing the Taliban regime? As things stand, no. Indian officials say the visit will focus on aid and assistance. Listen in to the Foreign Ministry.
We have been having conversation with the interim government in Afghanistan. You would have seen the telecon that had taken place some time back between External Affairs Minister and Foreign Minister Muttaqi. As also we've had conversation between the Joint Secretary in charge and his counterparts in the Afghan side. Recently, when the earthquake happened, the same day we were able to transport relief material to Kunar province, and subsequently we sent more relief material via Chabahar. So, as I told you, that we will keep you updated with the developments that will happen in this regard, in regard to the visit.
This is India's new policy in a nutshell. It is rooted in the ground reality of South Asia, a pragmatic approach. For the Taliban, this is a huge deal. India is the largest democracy in the world. It's also a rising world power. So to be hosted by New Delhi is a symbolic victory for the Taliban. Plus, don't forget the financial help. The Taliban has struggled to stabilize the Afghan economy. China has promised a lot of help, but none of their investments have materialized. The West is a no-go zone because of sanctions. Pakistan themselves are broke. So the Taliban need India, both Indian aid and Indian investment. But what's in it for New Delhi? Mainly three things. One, India has a long-standing commitment to the Afghan people. Even their parliament was built by India. So despite what happened in 2021, New Delhi isn't abandoning the Afghan people. Secondly, there's a strategic angle. Pakistan used to be the Taliban's top ally. They armed, funded, and cultivated them. But since 2021, the relation has soured. Pakistan accuses Kabul of shielding terrorists. The two sides have also exchanged fire at the border. In that context, India could deploy the age-old adage, your enemy's enemy is your friend. If not a friend, at least not your enemy. Now, we saw that during Operation Sindoor. Pakistan accused India of launching strikes on Afghan soil, but the Taliban rejected their claims. So this is a chance for India to gain some ground in Afghanistan, basically to undermine the Pakistani influence. The same can also be said of China. Beijing wants to use Afghanistan to access Central Asia. So it's important for India to be at the table. And finally, number 3, India is betting on Afghanistan for transit. New Delhi has signed a deal to operate terminals at Iran's Chabahar port. The idea is to link Chabahar to Afghanistan and then to Central Asia. Basically, India can reach Central Asia without Pakistan. Expect all of these issues to be covered next week. At the same time, there is a big question mark as well. The Taliban 2.0 has been the same as Taliban 1.0. They have erased women from public life. They have targeted religious minorities. And even this week, they have imposed a complete internet shutdown. Why? To supposedly filter the internet. Should India be legitimizing such a regime? That's what many people are asking. Of course, the reverse argument is also popular. It says you can use engagement to nudge a Taliban to roll back their curbs. Basically, leverage your diplomatic heft. Let's see how next week's visit unfolds. Donald Trump claims to have ended multiple wars. Among them is the Albania and Azerbaijan. Does that sound a bit off to you? It should, because Albania and Azerbaijan don't share a border. They are located hundreds of kilometers apart. It was a case of Trump getting names wrong. He said Albania instead of Armenia. Yesterday, this mix-up triggered some banter in Copenhagen. That's where European leaders huddled on Thursday. The Albanian leader was heard on a hot mic at the summit, and he jokingly congratulated the Azeri leader for the apparent peace deal. Here's a report.
Donald Trump claims to have ended multiple wars, the operative word being claimed. And all that peacemaking is taking its toll, because Trump's recent statements suggest the confusion.
To think that we settled Azerbaijan and Albania as an example, it was going on for years. It was never going to be settled. If you remember, the Prime Minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled.
Time for Geography 101. This is Albania, and this is Azerbaijan. Between them lies hundreds of kilometres of land and water. And no, they were not at war. Trump was referring to a whole different conflict. Not between Albania and Azerbaijan, but between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Trump simply got confused, and that confusion has triggered some laughs in Copenhagen. On Thursday, European leaders gathered in the Danish capital. They were discussing a possible drone wall for Eastern Europe. Basically, a state-of-the-art air defence system. Among the attendees were leaders of Albania and Azerbaijan. This is the Prime Minister Edi Rama of Albania, and this is Ilham Aliyev, President of Azerbaijan. Seeing his supposed enemy, Prime Minister Rama couldn't contain himself.
You should make an apology to us. You didn't congratulate us for the peace deal that President Trump made between Albania and Azerbaijan.
I am very sorry for that.
And he worked very hard.
Feels like a deja vu? It should, because this has happened to Trump before. Let's go back to 2019. London was hosting a summit of the NATO countries, and the hot mic struck. Canada's Justin Trudeau, Britain's Boris Johnson, and France's Emmanuel Macron were caught having a laugh. Once again, at Donald Trump's expense. Trump threw a tantrum back then. He called Justin Trudeau two-faced. This time, the US president is yet to react to the hot mic moment. Maybe he hasn't seen it, or maybe he doesn't care. Either way, the incident is a window into European attitude towards Trump. In public, they are differential. because they have to be. But in private, they joke and complain. It's the result of Trump's repeated attacks on the transatlantic relationship. For the US president, let's hope it's a reminder. He has lost track of how many wars he has ended. Sometimes 7, sometimes 5, and sometimes even 10. It's a perfect example of the age-old saying, lie enough times and you'll lose track of your lies.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Okay, big breaking news coming in, shifting our focus to the latest information that's been shared by Air Chief Marshal Amar Singh. He says 4 to 5 F-16s were destroyed on ground. So he is making a direct reference to Operation Sindoor. Big message coming in from the Indian Air Force Chief. Anand Narsimhan joins us with more details. Yes, Anand, what more do we know?
Well, this is big because the Air Marshal Amar Singh now divulging vital details on Operation Sindoor. The Air Force Chief very clearly saying that most likely 4 to 5 jets, the F-16s, Pak F-16s were destroyed in their hangars. That's what has happened. In those 20 minutes that Bharat struck 9 air bases, there was huge amount of destruction and damage for the Pakistanis. This is clearly not just pummeled and steamrolled Shehbaz Sharif and the Pak propaganda, but these are absolute numbers. On ground, 4 to 5 most likely F-16s, Pak F-16s have been neutralized on ground. They may have been in their hangars for maintenance or otherwise, but they were kept, and those assets have been neutralized along with control and command stations and also runways. This is the ground strikes, all achieved in 22 minutes. In that time, all those 9 air bases were struck. But more importantly, he's also said along with that, one SAM system that has been destroyed, and these are strikes that have destructions that have taken place on ground. SAM system is a surface to air missile system, has been destroyed. Also, further saying that the Indian Armed Forces have clear evidence of one long-range strike, which he says I talked about, more than 300 kilometers, which happens to be an AWAC. So an air reconnaissance system that the Pakistanis had deployed, and this was a Chinese AWAC system, we are given to understand, was destroyed. Along with that, 5 fighters, high-tech fighters. So this is on air and on ground, absolute, total, complete decimation of the Pakistani military and its braggadocio, all pummeled within minutes. In 90 hours, 2 big strikes. The first strike taking about 22 minutes when the terror infrastructure was demolished, and then just about 24 hours to 36 hours later, then the counter strikes using the BrahMos cruise missiles and pinpoint destruction of 9 air bases that forced the Pakistanis on their knees, and they had to put their hand up and say, smoke the peace pipe. That's what's happened. Now the Air Chief Amar Singh putting out those details there in that briefing. We'll play out that soundbite also and that portion where he's spoken about not just the destruction that has happened on ground, but also the destruction that has been meted out to the Pakistanis, the forces on air. So an AWAC system, 5 high-tech fighters destroyed on ground, a SAM system, that is a surface-to-air missile system, and most likely 4 to 5 Pak F-16s. So the F-16s of the Pakistani military have also been destroyed, along with multiple command centers across air bases, and some of those air bases, viewers, still are NOTAM. That means there is no traffic, no air traffic, and it cannot be used for operations. Operations are still suspended at some of the key air bases because of the damage that Bharat had unleashed under Operation Sindoor. So, contrary to the Pak braggadocio and Pak propaganda, false one at that, including their Prime Minister who have gone ahead and made these statements, this is what the Air Chief is revealing. These are the details that we need to focus on. Yes, there were aircrafts destroyed, but these were of the Pak military. Yes, 4 to 5 aircrafts could not even take off, and they were in their hangars getting maintenance or whatever, but they have been destroyed and it belongs to the Pak military. Yes, 4 high-tech fighters have been destroyed, they belong to the Pak ministry, and AWACS systems being destroyed belong to the Pak military. A surface-to-air missile system destroyed belong to the Pak military. Their air bases still remain not functional. This is the Pakistani air bases and the Pakistani Air Force. So all this propaganda and this making statements, and that too on international forums where word coming in from a sovereign leader should actually be true. Pakistan's lies busted. Shehbaz Sharif is a liar. Mohsin Naqvi, their interior minister, is a liar. And that's their lies have been caught, and they've been caught with their airstrips bared. That's what's happened. They've been caught with their ammunition and munitions exploded, pummeled. In 90 hours, twice the destruction put out by our forces has been such that Pakistan continues to reel under its impact. Which were the air bases that were visible within 24 hours for the world to see? Which was the air base which the Pakistanis claim to have destroyed, where the Prime Minister stood with an S-400 in the background? Bharat has nothing to hide. Satellite imagery is proof. Bharat's satellite imagery of Bharat's military installations is there for the world to see, and what is a state in Pakistan is there for the world to see. And thereafter, and that's why propaganda, negative propaganda, false propaganda by the Pakistanis, called out very smartly and succinctly by the Indian Air Chief, Amar Singh, who's come out and said, this is what we have done. Most likely 4 to 5 are already gone. They may be more. We do not know, but he says most likely.
It is day 3 of the US government shutdown, the first shutdown in nearly 7 years. And Trump is using this as an opportunity to issue ultimatums. He says he would be meeting with Budget Director Russ Vought to discuss temporary or even permanent spending cuts, what he describes as democratic agencies. Meanwhile, the White House has said that mass layoffs of federal workers are imminent. It could result in people permanently losing jobs. But the Democrats remain defiant. They say the threats of layoffs won't push Democrats to back down. So what's next? Our next report tells you more.
Government shutdowns in Washington are a bit like Broadway revivals. They come back every few years. The cast changes slightly. The script gets rewritten for modern politics. And everyone pretends to be surprised when the curtain drops. This week, America is once again in the middle of that production. The federal government is officially closed for business. On 1st October, the U.S. government went into shutdown mode. The Congress failed to pass a bill to keep money flowing into federal agencies. Day 2 has already bled into day 3. Government shutdowns aren't new, but this is the first in nearly 7 years, and both parties are refusing to budge. Republicans argue this could all be solved if Democrats simply agreed to a continuing resolution, a short-term funding measure that would reopen government. Their pitch? Let's not fight about healthcare and infrastructure right now. Just get the government back on track. Democrats, however, have had enough of shortcuts. For them, the issue is not simply about when the government reopens, but under what terms. They want to guarantee subsidies for low-income health insurance. They want to undo Medicaid cuts. But U.S. President Donald Trump has made it clear he sees the shutdown as a political gift. On Truth Social, he called it a historic opportunity. Why? Because he wants to use it to slash fundings to democratic agencies.
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault, and it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
In an interview with One America News, Trump even suggested that projects dear to Democrats could be axed permanently. Trump's budget director, Russ Vought, has wasted no time sharpening that weapon. He announced withholding billions in federal funding for infrastructure projects in blue states, starting with the city of Chicago. In his words, this is about preventing race-based contracting. But Democrats see a targeted attack on their strongholds. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has dubbed this Donald Trump's shutdown. His message is simple. Democrats are at the table, ready to negotiate, but only with credible partners. Until then, they see Republican demands as little more than holding them hostage.
Republicans have shut the government down because they don't want to provide health care to working class Americans. House Democrats continue to be here, on duty. House Republicans are on vacation. We are ready, we are willing, we are able to sit down with anyone, anytime, any place.
The Senate is scheduled to reconvene soon, but here's the catch. Republican leaders are threatening to pull their senators from Washington. If Democrats continue blocking their plan, that could push the shutdown well into next week or longer. The calendar is not on America's side. Because in Washington's game of chicken, it's always the people on the ground who get hit first.
It's not every day that Canada flexes its muscles at the US. For decades, it's been the polite junior partner. Washington led, Ottawa followed. The pattern was predictable. Until now. Canada has announced a new defence investment agency. It is designed to cut red tape. The procurement will be streamlined. The defence industry will have a clearer roadmap of government plans. For decades, Canada's defence shopping list had a simple answer. Buy American. Tanks, planes, missiles, software. Most of it came from across the border. For Ottawa, this was efficient. For Washington, it was a guaranteed market. For both, it seemed like common sense. The downside? Canada's own defence industry remained underdeveloped. Its sovereignty was dependent on US goodwill. So Prime Minister Mark Carney had this new plan to speed up Canada's notoriously slow procurement system. But with this message, and he is sending a message, Canada is trying to be independent in terms of defence, and this shift didn't come out of nowhere. Washington's recent tariffs were a shock for Ottawa. It wasn't just about money, it was about trust that led to a realization. Canada needed its own insurance policy. And amid all of this, Ottawa has signed onto the European Union's Rearm Europe plan, a plan that is worth over $1 trillion. It wasn't just symbolism, it was Canada diversifying. It is sourcing weapons, tech and partnerships beyond the US. For Ottawa, this is a hedge. If America turns inward, Canada doesn't want to be left scrambling. Instead, it wants to be tied into multiple defense ecosystems. The agency also has a mandate to work closely with other partners, the likes of the United Kingdom, Australia and France. However, not everyone in Ottawa is cheering. Conservatives argue the new agency is just more bureaucracy, another layer of paperwork for the defense industry. But Carney is betting on momentum. He has appointed crucial people to signal a technocratic push. Not all defense deals will go through the new agency. Only projects above the $100 million mark. Existing contracts will stay with procurement services. But here's the irony. The US just approved a major arms sale of HIMARS rocket systems to Canada. After all, the relationship is too intertwined to disentangle overnight. So Canada is playing a delicate balancing act, buying American where it must, building Canadian where it can, and partnering with Europe where it makes sense. So don't expect Canada to suddenly cut ties with the US. The cultural, economic, and geographic bonds are too strong. But also expect a new tone from Canada, one that is less compliant and more assertive. Ottawa wants to be seen as something more than just America's junior partner. It wants to be a defense industrial player, a partner who invests in its own strength. As Mark Carney himself put it, Canada's leadership will no longer be defined by the strength of our values, but it will be defined by the value of its strength. And that may be the most un-Canadian thing Canada has done in a long time. Mobile phones today are our wallets, they are our offices, and they are even our classrooms. But what if missing one EMI could switch that lifeline off? The Reserve Bank of India is studying that idea. Banks may soon get the power to lock a smartphone bought on credit. The lock would kick in if repayments stop. It's a move that could change how small loans are recovered. But it also raises tough questions about privacy, consumer rights, and fairness. Here's our report with more.
What if your phone could suddenly stop working? Not because it broke, not because the battery died, but because you missed paying an equated monthly installment or EMI. That is an idea currently being explored by the Reserve Bank of India. The central bank is studying a proposal. A platform that lets banks lock your mobile phone remotely if you bought it on credit and then defaulted on the payments. Why this? Because small-ticket loan defaults are rising, and smartphones represent a major portion of these loans. Estimates suggest that more than 1/3 of consumer electronics in India are now bought on EMIs. High-end phones top that list. But when payments are missed, banks struggle to recover. Traditionally, lenders could seize a car or a house. But how do you repossess a phone? It's small and used every day. This is where a digital lock becomes a new kind of collateral. The RBI has emphasized that nothing is final yet. It is still examining the pros and cons carefully. On one side are lenders, who want repayment tools. On the other side are consumers, whose privacy and rights must be protected. If allowed, the system will work only with the borrower's consent. Banks will not be able to see or tamper with personal data. They can only make the device inoperable until dues are cleared. But why is this even being considered now? Because India's credit market is evolving rapidly. Take credit cards, for example. Few years ago, lesser number of people used it. Now, the usage has surged. More people swipe or tap for daily needs. Digital payments and consumer spending have pushed this adoption. However, it has also led to rising credit card defaults. By December 2024, unpaid credit card bills added up to about 6,742 crore Indian rupees. That's nearly 28% higher than the year before. And it's not just about cards. Loan defaults overall hit their highest level in 6 quarters in March. Stress is particularly severe in smaller towns and rural areas. In Tier 3 towns, defaults climbed to 4.2%. In rural areas, it was 4.1%. The hardest hit are young people under 25. Many of them are first-time borrowers. They often take loans without a proper repayment plan. A key reason is the rapid expansion of easy credit in the country. Small loans with instant approvals and limited checks have become common. But repayment discipline has not kept pace. This is why the RBI is reviewing new options, to protect the financial system from risky behavior, to make sure banks don't drown in unpaid loans, and to balance that with the rights of millions of borrowers. The phone locking platform is one possible answer, but it also raises tough questions. Phones are not just gadgets, they are lifelines for work, school, health, and emergencies. Even a short lockout could feel like a disproportionate punishment. So the RBI is proceeding cautiously. It says the consumer's interest is paramount. At the same time, lenders need protection as well. A final decision is still months away, but if it goes through, your smartphone could become your next collateral. And every missed EMI could come with a bigger consequence, losing access to the device you depend on most.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Okay, big breaking news coming in, shifting our focus to the latest information that's been shared by Air Chief Marshal Amar Singh. He says 4 to 5 F-16s were destroyed on ground. So he is making a direct reference to Operation Sindoor. Big message coming in from the Indian Air Force Chief. Anand Narsimhan joins us with more details. Yes, Anand, what more do we know?
Well, this is big because the Air Marshal Amar Singh now divulging vital details on Operation Sindoor. The Air Force Chief very clearly saying that most likely 4 to 5 jets, the F-16s, Pak F-16s were destroyed in their hangars. That's what has happened. In those 20 minutes that Bharat struck 9 air bases, there was huge amount of destruction and damage for the Pakistanis. This is clearly not just pummeled and steamrolled Shehbaz Sharif and the Pak propaganda, but these are absolute numbers. On ground, 4 to 5 most likely F-16s, Pak F-16s have been neutralized on ground. They may have been in their hangars for maintenance or otherwise, but they were kept, and those assets have been neutralized along with control and command stations and also runways. This is the ground strikes, all achieved in 22 minutes. In that time, all those 9 air bases were struck. But more importantly, he's also said along with that, one SAM system that has been destroyed, and these are strikes that have destructions that have taken place on ground. SAM system is a surface to air missile system, has been destroyed. Also, further saying that the Indian Armed Forces have clear evidence of one long-range strike, which he says I talked about, more than 300 kilometers, which happens to be an AWAC. So an air reconnaissance system that the Pakistanis had deployed, and this was a Chinese AWAC system, we are given to understand, was destroyed. Along with that, 5 fighters, high-tech fighters. So this is on air and on ground, absolute, total, complete decimation of the Pakistani military and its braggadocio, all pummeled within minutes. In 90 hours, 2 big strikes. The first strike taking about 22 minutes when the terror infrastructure was demolished, and then just about 24 hours to 36 hours later, then the counter strikes using the BrahMos cruise missiles and pinpoint destruction of 9 air bases that forced the Pakistanis on their knees, and they had to put their hand up and say, smoke the peace pipe. That's what's happened. Now the Air Chief Amar Singh putting out those details there in that briefing. We'll play out that soundbite also and that portion where he's spoken about not just the destruction that has happened on ground, but also the destruction that has been meted out to the Pakistanis, the forces on air. So an AWAC system, 5 high-tech fighters destroyed on ground, a SAM system, that is a surface-to-air missile system, and most likely 4 to 5 Pak F-16s. So the F-16s of the Pakistani military have also been destroyed. along with multiple command centers across air bases, and some of those air bases, viewers, still are NOTAM. That means there is no traffic, no air traffic, and it cannot be used for operations. Operations are still suspended at some of the key air bases because of the damage that Bharat had unleashed under Operation Sindoor. So, contrary to the Pak braggadocio and Pak propaganda, false one at that, including their Prime Minister who have gone ahead and made these statements, this is what the Air Chief is revealing. These are the details that we need to focus on. Yes, there were aircraft destroyed, but these were of the Pak military. Yes, 4 to 5 aircraft could not even take off, and they were in their hangars getting maintenance or whatever, but they have been destroyed and it belongs to the Pak military. Yes, 4 high-tech fighters have been destroyed, they belong to the Pak ministry, and AWACS systems being destroyed belong to the Pak military. A surface-to-air missile system destroyed belong to the Pak military. Their air bases still remain not functional. This is the Pakistani air bases and the Pakistani Air Force. So all this propaganda and this making statements, and that too on international forums where word coming in from a sovereign leader should actually be true. Pakistan's lies busted. Shehbaz Sharif is a liar. Mohsin Naqvi, their interior minister, is a liar. And that's their lies have been caught, and they've been caught with their airstrips bared. That's what's happened. They've been caught with their ammunition and munitions exploded, pummeled. In 90 hours, twice the destruction put out by our forces has been such that Pakistan continues to reel under its impact. Which were the air bases that were visible within 24 hours for the world to see? Which was the air base which the Pakistanis claim to have destroyed, where the Prime Minister stood with an S-400 in the background? Bharat has nothing to hide. Satellite imagery is proof. Bharat's satellite imagery of Bharat's...
When does an album turn into a midnight frenzy? When it's released by Taylor Swift. Her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, dropped at midnight, and with it came countdowns, fans camped out at stores and listening parties. So many pressed play together that Spotify crashed. The record was pre-saved more than 5 million times. Yet critics are divided. Some call it her most upbeat record yet. Others say parts fall flat. For millions of fans, though, this wasn't just an album launch. It was the start of a new era. Our final report has more.
It all began with a countdown. Weeks of teasing clues, colours, codes and hidden signals. And then, at the stroke of midnight, the curtain finally lifted. Taylor Swift's 12th studio album was finally out. The Life of a Showgirl had arrived worldwide. For fans, the mystery was over. The speculation about lyrics and vinyl shades gave way to one simple act: pressing play. And they pressed play together. Millions logged on simultaneously. The surge was so intense that Spotify stalled. Outage Tracker Down Detector logged over 1,000 complaints. Users from the United States to India saw frozen screens. The disruption lasted mere minutes, but sent a clear message. Only a rare few artists can crash Spotify in seconds. Even before release, demand was visible. Spotify said the album had been pre-saved more than 5 million times, the highest in the platform's history. The previous record holder, Swift's own album from last year, The Tortured Poets Department. But Swifties, as the singer's fans are called, don't just live online. They showed up in person. Target stores opened past midnight in New York, Miami and Los Angeles. Fans queued down the aisle. They clutched limited vinyls in gold shimmer and summertime spritz pink. Many admitted they didn't even own a record player. They just wanted the keepsake.
This is so different from the last album, but in a really good way. Like, it's a lot happier sounding. I feel like it's perfect and upbeat, and I'm just like ready to hear it when I'm like out in the world now.
In Mexico City, fans turned a bar into a listening hall. At the moment of release, they sang track by track as the album played in full. The global drop had become a global gathering.
It feels like something totally new, something we didn't expect, and it brings a whole different vibe. The last album was still very poetic, maybe with folk vibes or like Evermore, something along those lines. But this one feels like we're bringing pop back again. That's the vibe it gives me, so I feel like that's why everyone's so excited.
The spectacle extended further. Spotify staged a 3-day pop-up in Manhattan, and TikTok built its own in Los Angeles. So what's on the record itself? 12 tracks, sharp and deliberate. Only one collaboration on the title song. And the production takes Swift back to familiar ground. She reunited with Swedish hitmakers Max Martin and Shellback. Swift says she wrote the songs while touring, even flying to Sweden to record. She calls the album a self-portrait, and the personal backdrop makes that description matter. It's her first release since announcing her engagement to Travis Kelce in August. Romance runs through the lyrics, with a track called Opalite nodding to Kelce's birthstone. But when it comes to the critics, the verdict is mixed. Some praise the album's bold pop experiments, others call parts of it clumsy and uneven. Still, Swifties busy dissecting every lyric for Easter eggs step back and the bigger picture becomes clear. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is already the highest grossing in history. Now she holds Spotify's record for pre-saves. Each release is no longer just an album, it's a pop event, a cultural ritual, and a business machine.
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Clashes break out during pro-Palestinian protests in Barcelona. CCTV footage shows Moroccan protesters breaking into the station of security forces. And FIFA releases the official match ball for the 2026 World Cup. And finally, taking you back in history. On this day in 1990, East and West Germany reunited after 45 years. In 1945, Soviet forces occupied Eastern Germany, while the Allied forces occupied the western half of the nation. Divided Germany was one of the most enduring symbols of the Cold War. The unity of Germany came less than a year after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Leaving you on that note, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jambal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has announced a judicial inquiry into the death of singer Zubeen Garg, urging people not to drag his name into political conspiracies. Meanwhile, CNN News 18 has accessed a key witness remand note. A bandmate of Zubeen Garg has alleged a conspiracy to portray Zubeen's death as accidental. He has accused Siddharth Sharma of suspicious behavior in Singapore, forcibly taking control of the yacht and endangering passengers. Goswami alleges that Sharma and Shyamkanu Mahanta poisoned Zubeen and chose a foreign venue to hide the act. First, let's listen into what Himanta Biswa Sarma had to say.
ন্যায়িক তদন্ত প্ৰথমবাৰৰ বাবে গুৱাহাটী উচ্চ ন্যায়ালয়ৰ মাননীয় মুখ্য ন্যায়াধীশ গৰাকীক আমি আহ্বান জনাইছিলোঁ যে জুবিন গাৰ্গৰ মৃত্যুৰ তদন্ত কৰিবলৈ এখন জুডিচিয়েল কমিশ্যন ন্যায়িক আয়োগ গঠন কৰিব লাগে আৰু এই ন্যায়িক আয়োগত ৰিটায়াৰ্ড জাজ নহয় অৱসৰপ্ৰাপ্ত ন্যায়াধীশ নহয় হাইকোৰ্টৰ বৰ্তমান ন্যায়াধীশ এজনক নিযুক্তি দিব লাগে আমাৰ অনুৰোধত মাননীয় উচ্চ ন্যায়ালয়ৰ মুখ্য ন্যায়াধীশ ডাঙৰীয়াই এজন বিচাৰপতি জাষ্টিস সৌমিত্ৰ শইকীয়াক এই আয়োগখনৰ অধ্যক্ষতা কৰিবলৈ অনুমোদন জনাইছে
To get more details, I'm joined by my colleague Niloy on the broadcast. So Niloy, these are some startling claims coming in when it comes to the death investigation of Zubeen Garg and the circumstances surrounding his demise. These statements from a bandmate of Zubeen Garg lays out some shocking claims when it comes to the people around him.
Right, like there has been certain conspiracy theory more going around, and Shekhar Jyoti Goswami, his bandmate since 2014, he has been arrested and sent to judicial police custody for 14 days police custody today morning. He was present in the judicial CGM court. Now, Shekhar Jyoti Goswami has claimed has made some startling claims. Now, prior to this, when we interviewed Shekhar Jyoti Goswami, when he came back from Singapore and he was in his